Logical fallacies are methods of reasoning that use sound bases of evidence and/or assumptions, but produce unsound conclusions. The anecdotal fallacy takes weak evidence with a very small sample size, such as one or two occurrences under uncontrolled circumstances, and generalizes unsubstantiated conclusions. The larger and more diverse the sample, and/or the more controlled the circumstances under which the data is gathered, the more reliably the evidence can be generalized to the conclusion. The appeal to nature fallacy argues that if something is natural, it must be good, or conversely, that if something is unnatural, it must be bad. One problem with this reasoning is that what makes something natural or unnatural is not clearly defined, and this ambiguity is often used to support the desired conclusion. In addition, there are things that occur in nature, like arsenic, asbestos, and uranium, that can be quite dangerous. The appeal to emotion fallacy suggests a possibility that evokes a euphoric or dysphoric emotion and then supports its claim with the evoked emotion rather than evidence. Careful consideration of the evidence and reasoning can help us tell us the truth, even an uncomfortable, unpleasant truth, from fiction, even a pleasant fiction. The appeal to authority fallacy is one that we encounter constantly in our day-to-day lives. People frequently ask us to accept an assertion with little to no evidence provided because an expert or someone in power or a position of authority said it was true. No matter who asserts something, though, we're all human and we all make mistakes, misread evidence, and occasionally even lie if it supports our goals. So no matter who asserts a claim, we must make sure to examine it just as thoroughly as we would a claim from someone without that position. The argument ad hominem, or to the man fallacy, is in many ways the opposite of the appeal to authority fallacy. The ad hominem fallacy argues that because the person making the claim is in some way distasteful or problematic, their claim should be seen as false. Just as authorities can make false claims, though, so too can repugnant people make true claims. Once again, we must evaluate the claim on its own supports, not on the strength or weakness of the person making the claim. The argumentum ad populum, or argument to popularity fallacy, is the commonly heard claim that something must be true because everyone knows that it is. Just because everyone knows something, though, doesn't mean that it is true. There was a time that everyone knew that the sun revolved around the earth. As people made more observations and got better evidence, we discovered that what everyone knew wasn't the case. This is a great example of why we evaluate claims based on evidence. The post hoc ergo propter hoc, after this, therefore because of this fallacy, confuses correlation with causation. Simply because one event occurs after another event does not indicate any kind of relationship, causal or even just correlational, between the two events. Even if there does seem to be the most basic relationship between the two events, a correlation, it doesn't mean that there is a direct cause and effect relationship. Both events could be caused by a third, unrecorded event. The world is also a complex case, and most events have multiple causes. For all of these reasons, we cannot assume that simply because the first event occurs, the second event will inevitably follow. Finally, a very important fallacy to learn about is the argument from fallacy fallacy. Simply because a conclusion is asserted or argued for fallaciously does not mean that it is false. What it does mean is that we cannot reliably assess the likelihood of the claim being true based on the presented argument. Instead, we will have to look for other evidence from other sources to find out whether or not the claim being made is true. There are many more logical fallacies that I didn't have time to talk about, but I encourage you to read more about logical fallacies and how to think more critically.